So the game that I played against Anna Cramling was pretty crazy. I started off by playing e4. We're at the freestyle chess, by the way, and it was a Sicilian defense. Now, I developed my knight like normal, and pawn to e6 was played. Now, this is already an indication that it's going to be a Sicilian can, but we're still going to be doing the regular stuff. Pawn to d4, put the pawn in the center. This is how I recommend you guys play against any Sicilian defense. Pawn takes, now knight to f6. Now, knight to f6, this is a line that I have some preparation against. I've actually beaten at 2800 with it. Now, what's a mistake in this position would be a move like pawn to e5, because yes, it attacks the knight. Maybe you think I'm going to be forcing the knight to move again, but black is not going to move the knight. Black is actually going to play the move queen to a5, check the king, hit the pawn, and I'm already losing. But I knew that, so I didn't play it. I played the move bishop to d3, developing my pieces and protecting my pawn at the same time. And then here she played the move knight to c6. Now, she's developing her knight. It is also attacking my knight. So it's a very good move because it's basically forcing me to move my knight more than once in the opening stage of the game. However, I got my king out the center. So my king is already castled. My bishop is developed. Now I want to play e5 because my king is castled. And all I need to do here is develop two more of my pieces, and then the attack will start. So remember, always finish your development before you start the attack. So pawn to d5 was played. She had to try to control the center of the board. We're obviously not going to take on d5. So I just played pawn to e5 and attack the knight. The knight now has to move, and that's a good thing. You want to move your pieces forward, and you want to force the opponent to pull back their pieces. So knight back to d7 was played. My pawn is under attack. And remember what I tell you guys, even if you have to defend something, you want to ensure that you defend and follow principles at the same time. So I simply played the move rook to e1, guarding my pawn, getting my rook in the game. But then she played queen to c7. So she's also developing her queen, and she's applying some pressure to my pawn on e5. But it's the same drill. I developed my bishop and I protected the pawn. So even though I'm forced to react to her moves, all my moves are still productive moves. So I'm not necessarily losing any tempo. So after this, she decided to play bishop to c5. She's developing her bishop. It's like the first inaccurate move, to be honest, because it is annoying, but it doesn't really do much. But the move that I'm gonna play next, this is just preparation. Like, I've played these types of moves so many times. Remember, I teach you guys about the drawback principle. Whenever the opponent makes a move, for example, the bishop in this case, you have to check to see what it's no longer guarding. So because the bishop is no longer guarding the pawn on g7, I now played a development move, develop my queen and attack the pawn on g7. And remember, we spoke about this. It's very important that we look for pieces on the opponent's half of the board to target. Now, in this position, she played pawn to g6, and I immediately knew that was an inaccuracy. Now, well, the computer likes it, but white is just better in this position because black has too many dark square weaknesses around the king. What should we do here? Should we start our attack? No, the knight is not yet developed. So what did I do? I just finished my development. All my pieces is getting developed here. So she decided to castle the king, and then after the king was castled, I played the move knight to f3. Now, I want you guys to notice what I'm doing. Yes, I'm developing my pieces, but where am I pointing my pieces towards? I'm pointing my pieces towards her king side. I want to play moves like queen h4, knight g5, queen takes h7, and that's actually going to be a checkmate. So she didn't allow all of that, obviously. She immediately strike with queen to b6. And now I have to be very careful. Like, white is better here, but f2 is under attack and b2 is under attack. If I'm not careful, she's going to take on f2 and I'm going to be forked. But what did I do? I continued with my plan and defend against the threat at the same time. Because remember, offense is the best defense. So I hit her with queen to h4. Again, it looks like I'm just trying to defend, but I'm also trying to apply pressure to h7 as well. I want to play moves like bishop h6, knight g5, and here she played the move pawn to f6, which that was a very suspicious move. Like, the moment she played it, I was like, you're too brave playing a move like that. It's like, if you're defending your king, you should not be pushing the pawns on the side that your king is on. It's like, you should try to bring more pieces to guard your king. Remember, we spoke about the fact that her dark squares are weak, and I'm trying to infiltrate the dark squares. What she needs to do here is she needs to play rook to e8, bishop f8, bishop g7, and cover the dark squares. And then how I would react to that is I would try to play bishop h6 and get rid of the dark square bishop off the board. But after queen h4, though, she played f6. I took the pawn. Obviously, my bishop is now active. My rook is now active. My knight get the e5 square, and then after she take back, I lodge my knight into the e5 square. So here I'm just chilling. Like I'm just chilling at this point. I'm doing good. I said, hey, we're gonna be sacrificing something for the fans on g6, and then she was like, nope, knight h5. I want to attack as well. And again, I have to be careful. We have to look on the opponent's last move. My bishop is under attack twice. I'm only guarding it once. My f2 pawn is under attack twice. I'm only guarding it once. So you could say my queen is overworked. And the rook on f8 is also pointing towards f2. And my b2 pawn is hanging. So again, I had to be careful here. I had to find bishop e3. Like if I didn't play bishop e3, then I would have just be losing. So after bishop e3, she decided to trade. Then I played rook takes, and then she played knight to f4. Very, very nice idea. She's putting her pieces on my half of the board. And in this position, my fellow viewers, I played the move rook to f3. Yes, have a look on the evaluation bar. It's a complete blunder. I didn't know that it was a blunder, and I didn't know that it was a blunder. But if we just look on the position, and this is something that I'm trying to actually work on in my games, where you don't want to have too many unprotected and uncoordinated pieces on the board, like unprotected, it means the pieces are not coordinated well enough. So instead of rook to e3, I should have just played a regular move like rook to b1, guard the pawn first, and then I try to continue with some ideas. So after rook to f3, she did play queen takes b2, which is the best move. She attacks the unprotected rook, she attacks the unprotected knight, and then once I play the move rook to e1, thinking I'm chilling, you're gonna get mated. All she needs to do here, watch this. My queen is unprotected, right? My rook is unprotected. All she needed to do was play queen to b4. I'm not gonna lie, if she had found queen to b4, I'd probably had to do the procedure because okay, the rook is under attack. What am I gonna do? If I play a move like rook to e3 guarding the rook, my queen is unprotected. Knight e2, that's a discovered attack. I'm losing the queen. If I choose to save the queen, then I lose the rook and I'm losing the game. So now I'm looking on it. I'm thinking king f1. Oh my lord. Okay, I'm not going to tell you guys. If king f1, what should Anna play in this position to win the game? It's crazy. It's the only move that wins the game. So I want to hear what you guys said. But she missed it. She played queen to c3 instead. And now she's only attacking one unprotected piece. You should be playing multi-purpose moves when you're playing. So I just played rook to e3. Now all my pieces are guarded, and then white is now better again. So knight takes d3 was played. I decided to take with the pawn. That's a decent move. And then she played bishop to a6. So I have to be careful here. I am down by a pawn. However, I just knew that I had a better position because have a look on this knight on e5. This is called like an eternal knight. There is no minor piece that is able to capture this knight. And it's also a situation called good knight versus bad bishop. Usually when you have those situations, the knight is better than the bishop. Now, after the bishop moves, I decided to play the move queen to e7. Remember we spoke about this? If you're trying to play the best move on the board, you always want to be looking for moves where you put your queen on the opponent's half of the board. The computer like pawn to d4 because it's a discovered attack and it attacks the queen. That could have also worked. But after queen e7, when I played the move rook to e8, now it looks like it's just chasing away my queen, but we spoke about the drawback principle. By moving the rook to e8, the rook is no longer guarding the pawn on a7. So what did I do? I took the free pawn, attacked the unprotected bishop, and then she played bishop back to c8. Like once I saw when she played this move, I knew it was over. Because now all I did, I hit her with a move like pawn to d4. Have a look on this. What is this called? Okay. And both of my rooks are active, and she's not able to move my knight. So she played queen to c2. She had to create a threat. My f2 pawn is now under attack twice. I'm only guarding it once, but I just played rook back to e2. Hit the queen, protect the pawn. The queen went back to f5. And what do we do when we have passed pawns, my fellow viewers? We push them. So that's what I did. I advanced the pass pawn. Even though we're not in the end game here, I advanced my pass pawn. And then here, she pulled the queen back to f6 because she wanted to neutralize my queen. But I didn't care. I'm pushing the pass pawn. And then she finally got the chance to neutralize my queen. But then I just pull the queen back. I'm attacking the c6 pawn twice. Like, there's nothing bad that's going to be happening here. So in this position, she decided to play bishop to a6. And then I played rook to b2. Now, I could have tried capturing on c6 because if she takes my rook, I take her rook with check. But the time was running down here. The computer also doesn't like it. And rook to b2, I thought made the most sense. It puts my rook on the open file. c6 is still under attack. And, once you have an advantage, you don't necessarily want to rush the position. You just want to keep the advantage. So bishop to b5 was played. And then I played a very nice move, knight to g4. Now, why I played knight to g4 is the rook is under attack. The queen is the only defender of the rook. So this is like a removing the guard tactic. And she has to be careful. If she tries something like queen to f7 guarded the rook, knight h6 and the queen is gone. That's a fork. So she decided to play queen to f4 and attack the knight. But unfortunately, there's nothing guarding the rook. So from here, I took the rook. She took my knight, but I'm just completely winning. Now we're winning. What should you do once you have a winning position? You should convert, you should simplify. So that's what I did. Because I have more material, I traded the queens off the board. Queen takes e6 check. My queen checks the king. It attacks her queen. She is forced to take. And then once I take, I have a pass pawn. I have more time than her. So now it was just a matter of conversion. She attacks my pawn. I guarded the pawn. She played bishop to c4, attacked my rook. I had to move the rook. And then rook to a6. Now, my conversion was not the cleanest because I played pawn to g3 with the whole idea of activating my king. But I think it would have been better to play rook to e7 first because it prevents her king from joining the game. And her king got very annoying. And then if she attacks my rook, I go rook b7, rook b6, trade the rooks off the board, and that's GG. So wasn't the cleanest, but pawn to g3, king to f7. I pull my rook back to e3, and then after she pulled the bishop back to b5, I played rook to c3. Maybe I shouldn't have played rook to c3 because the pawn is just guarded, but we both had low time in this position, and she was quickly activating her king. So I had to, well, I played rook to c5 before I activated my king. I still have the advantage here, but conversion is not the cleanest. She played king to e4. And this is what I'm telling you guys about. Like, I had to ensure that I lock her king out because now I had to play rook to d1. My pawn on a5 seems to be hanging. The good thing is, if she takes the pawn on a5, I was still going to play rook c3, check the king and attack this pawn. I had enough to win the game. So after I played rook d1, she went back with the king. She didn't really want to get checkmated. Both of her time was running out in this position. And then I played rook to e1. Now I'm trying to cut off her king. She moves the king out the way. I pull the rook back. And then after a5, I gave a check. The king now had to move to g7. Could have also go to g5, but h4 could have been a mating net. But after she put the king here, I simply played rook to e7 and she didn't have enough time on the clock. So I won the game. If you haven't seen the game, it's right here.